Welcome back to AP US History. This is Chapter 11, talking about Jacksonian democracy. We talked about the corrupt bargain the last time, the fact that Henry Clay was elected or helped elect John Quincy Adams to the presidency and later was given a post in the executive branch as Secretary of State. Jackson supporters called this deal that they thought was happened behind closed doors as a corrupt bargain. So even though Jackson was in 1824 had a majority or had a plurality of the popular vote and the electoral votes, he still did not become president. Adams will only serve 4 years, and the Democratic Republican Party will be fractured because of his presidency. Now we move to the Tariff of Abomination, and this is in 1828, the biggest issue of Adams' presidency. The South hated the tariff because they depended on manufactured goods from overseas to supply their needs. And Congress will increase the tariff in 1824 from 23% to 37% on goods being imported to the United States, and this is really going to hurt the pocketbooks of the South. So the tariff issue is one of those things that's going to divide America. The northern industrial area is going to welcome the tariff because it makes their goods more competitive. At the same time, the South is going to hate the tariff. Woolen mills wanted protection from British wool manufacturers in the north and in the west. Jacksonians were going to use this as an issue to unseat John Quincy Adams by raising the tariff to 45%. This was the highest tariff that America had experienced, and they would blame it on Adams, and he would lose support, and Jackson would be able to come back in 1828 and capture the White House. So the tariff was passed by Congress, and John Quincy Adams signed it because his roots lie in the north, the industrial area. The South hated this tariff. John C. Calhoun, who was Adams' vice president, wrote the Southern Carolina Exposition denouncing the tariff, calling it unconstitutional. A few things that were part of this was that he just felt it was being put on the Southerners. They were paying far more than they needed to for manufactured goods. He claimed that the South were consumers and the exporters. Now, there weren't any tariffs on exports, but only on imports. He will use the same argument that Jefferson and Madison used in the Virginia and Kentucky Resolution, calling for nullification of the tariff. Jefferson and Madison called for the nullification of the Alien Sedition Act. He will call for the same thing in this exposition. He was hoping to save the Union because he felt that the Union was going to be torn apart by this tariff, that the South was going to secede from the Union. Unfortunately or fortunately, no other Southern state agreed or signed on to this doctrine. But nonetheless, this argument of nullification comes up again. Because of this tariff, Adams is going to lose support, and in 1828 he is going to be a one-term president. The National Republicans supported John Quincy Adams, and the Democratic Republicans supported Andrew Jackson. Still essentially the same Democratic Party. They seem to have fractured a bit. Some call this election the Revolution of 1828 because the common man is going to be responsible for putting Jackson in the White House. And the balance of power will shift from the east to the west and the south. You can see here on the election map, Jackson wins his support in the west and in the south, and John Quincy Adams will draw his support from the northeast. Who were the people who supported Jackson? Well, the planter elites in the South. Jackson comes from the South, Tennessee. He is seen as a frontiersman. They think he's a man of the people. One of the things that he will bring and he will promise those people who support him a spoil system. Immigrants in the city seem to be attracted to Jackson because of his common roots. It helps to be a war hero, and quite a few presidents who served in the military and distinguished themselves helped boost them into the White House. As you can see, population was moving westward. You can see the centers of population as it moved towards the Mississippi. Certainly he was helped by the increased turnout of voters and the fact that a lot more people could vote. Jackson was viewed as a man of the people, not an elitist. Although he wasn't a poor man, he did have a sizable estate in Tennessee. Personified the New West, this can-do, rugged individualism. Certainly was not seen as a wealthy man, but more akin to the common man. Like Jefferson, favored states' rights and hated Henry Clay's American system. Now, Henry Clay's American system was basically built on a tariff, the bank, and internal improvements. So we'll come up, that's one of these things that reoccur on the AP exam. He believed in the Union. He believed in his country. He would do whatever he could to keep it together. The essential question, champion of the common man or King Andrew. He certainly ruled like a king at times, flaunting the Supreme Court rulings and ramrodding things that he believed in. He will kill the Bank of the United States. He will his policies will devastate the Indians in the South. There are some negative sides to this man and the presidency. He employed the veto 12 times. The 6 previous presidents had only used the veto 10 times, so he was certainly out in front on vetoes. That is, rejecting what Congress had passed in the House and the Senate. His opponents called him King Andrew I because of the way he treated subordinates and the fact that he was going to have it his way or no way. Now, Jacksonian democracy, politics. Male white suffrage. You didn't have to be a taxpayer necessarily. You didn't have to have property. You didn't need to go to the church. You just had to be a white male, free white male. Certainly the end of caucuses, that is, the party leaders deciding who's going to run and having primaries. The spoil system is just simply giving federal jobs to people who support you as president, and he certainly will do that. This is a cartoon showing King Andrew in a newspaper, certainly trampling on the Constitution and the veto. You can see it in his left hand, the scepter, ruling with an iron rod. Born to command. Well, he was a general, and he did certainly had some leadership abilities. He believed in rotation of office. He believed that common folks who could read and write could do the job just as well as the bureaucrats who'd been there for years. So he wanted more people involved in politics. And he sought to remove political enemies from federal jobs and replace them with loyal supporters. In fact, only 20% of the incumbents were removed, although he will supply jobs to those people who support him. He wasn't always that enamored with the professional bureaucrats. Hey, this just gets some ordinary people in there with some common horse sense, making reasonable decisions. So he believed in more people participating. Now, the consequence of the spoil system. It built a party around him. You supported him if you wanted to get a job in the government, the federal government. It was not based on merit, but based solely on your competency. Now, John Quincy Adams was the kind of guy that would have hired someone who was his political enemy if he felt that he was a competent person who could do the job. Certainly political corruption resulted from this system because people are going to do favors, and if I help you, you help me. So certainly there is that possibility when you have a spoils system. Now there was something called the kitchen cabinet. These were unofficial cabinet members who would meet in the White House in the kitchen. They would have a keg and whiskey. They would talk about politics. They mostly were newspaper people, people that had the pulse of the nation, close friends who would advise Jackson as to what to do. Some people criticized these men and called them the kitchen cabinet. And they were a little afraid that he might, they wanted people to be approved by the Senate to give him advice. Peggy Eaton was an interesting affair. His wife died before he came into office. There was a scandal involving his wife, the fact that she had not officially or supposedly had not divorced her first husband, and he had married her, and people called her a whore and a loose woman, and he was always sensitive about that. In fact, he challenged a fellow to duel and shot him for suggesting that his wife was of low moral character. Peggy Eaton got into a situation where she had an affair with another man while her husband was gone. Comes back. The other wives, cabinet member wives, won't have anything to do with her. He stands up for her and says, well, boys, I want you to come to the party and I want you to bring your wives. If you don't, I'm going to fire you. And so the cabinet members refused to come, and he fired them. And so Peggy Eaton, he kind of had a soft spot for her, and so he was defending her honor. I don't know how important that will be in the scheme of things, but you can see sort of his moral character there, standing up for the people who are being downtrodden and having a soft spot for him. Certainly there were some things that he did that would be considered unconstitutional, and we'll take a look at those. Perhaps his influence was exaggerated a bit, but we'll take a look at that also. Now, we'll turn our attention to the Webster-Hayne debate. This will take place between a Southerner and a Northerner. The New England Senator, Webster, will support, and they will the curbing of the sale of public lands. A lot of the industrialists in the New England area in the north were afraid that too many people would be going to the west if there was cheap land there, so they wanted to stop the flow a bit. Western senators were furious that the western land, they wanted more people coming and they wanted to sell the land. The Southerners will side with the West on this issue, and so this debate will take place between these two gentlemen. Hayne is from South Carolina, and Daniel Webster is from Maine. And both will believe that their argument is legitimate. And so this will go on. And we'll stop right there and pick this up at another time in part 3.